Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here, everyone. Thank you for joining me and welcome back to the channel. This week, Thursday, let's see, what's today? The 15th. Thursday, the 17th, I'm going to be in a Tampa courtroom for the latest hearing in a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit against the Church of Scientology. This lawsuit specifically names David Miscavige, and one of the other Scientology entities named in this suit is the Freewinds ship, Scientology's cruise ship, the Sea Org motor vessel Freewinds, or also known legally as the Flagship Service Organization. So for any Scientology attorneys or private investigators who would like to, I don't know, maybe have a little chat, that's where I'll be, and that's where you can find me, and I will see you there. One of the things that we should find out at this hearing is whether David Miscavige has been successfully served in this lawsuit. He's been running around, hiding like a little rat, trying to avoid service, and if he's not careful, we're going to sick dog the bounty hunter on him. And honestly, I would love for that to occur. But I believe the lawyers will be successful, and I hope have been successful in serving Miscavige. We will find out in 2 days. The other thing that we're going to find out, this hearing is about the enforceability of the agreements these former Sea Org members who worked on Scientology's Freewinds ship, they signed, as do all Scientologists, agreements promising to never sue Scientology for any reason whatsoever. And there's an argument being made in this case that those agreements are not enforceable, they are invalid, and that is the subject matter of this hearing. So since this lawsuit has to do with labor trafficking and other unsafe conditions aboard Scientology's Freewinds ship, I thought it would only be appropriate and a little bit of fun for us to take a look at what is some of the information that's already out there about the Freewinds. It's one of the most secretive Scientology organizations that actually delivers Scientology to the public itself. I mean, there's much more secret organizations in Scientology, but those organizations aren't involved in delivering Scientology. Those other organizations are like behind the scenes management entities. So what information is out there? What do the public already know about the Freewinds? I found this short 10-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I'm going to chop it up and address certain parts of it. This was put out by a channel called Cruise Daily. The video was put up almost a year ago. It's already got almost 500,000 views. Let's take a look. I already watched this video. He did a pretty good job talking about it. Let's take a look at this and see what we can learn and what there is to discuss.
This is potentially the deadliest and most horrifying cruise ship in the world, and it's still actively sailing today. Usually, when we think of cruising, we imagine a fun, relaxing, and rejuvenating experience. Not so much this ship. We're talking about the MV Freewinds, a ship that is allegedly responsible for the premature death of hundreds of people and that has been accused of illegally imprisoning innocent crew members and defrauding passengers. And worst of all, the ship is still cruising in the Caribbean today, and few seem to know of the horrors happening on board.
By the way, during COVID, am I allowed to say that on YouTube? I don't know. I guess we'll see. During the lockdowns, the Freewinds actually spent at least a year and a half docked without sailing. And there was speculation that you take a ship like this and you keep it out of operation for that amount of time that you won't be able to get it back into operation. But it is sailing again. It is bouncing back around between the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. So, all right, let's keep going.
First, let's go back in time. The MV Freewinds was built in 1968 and was originally planned to be a car ferry. Constructors soon changed their mind, however, after finding out that the demand for the planned route just wasn't high enough. The ship was then quickly reconfigured to become a cruise ship, and the owners added a small pool, a theater, and other basic passenger amenities to make up for the change in plans.
Guys, real quick, this is an actual depiction of the little theater that's on the cruise, that's on the Freewinds. And in Scientology events that are held in this theater, they do camera angles that make this thing look like 20 times bigger than it is. But check this out. This is the actual layout. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So only 16 people can sit across, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe not even 16 rows back. Do the math on that. I'm not good at math, you guys. I grew up in a cult, but 16 times 16, that's beyond my ability. But anyway, that is how small this theater is. I just want to point that out for you under-the-radar Scientologists who watch these videos and think that the Freewinds is actually a big ship and it's actually got a big theater. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Once the ship was delivered, it set sail, and everything turned out great. Well, not quite. Within 20 minutes of sailing on its maiden voyage, the ship struck an undersea cliff just off the coast of Stockholm. The hull and the main fuel tank ruptured, and passengers had to be evacuated via lifeboats. This was the beginning of a crazy journey for a cruise ship that was never even supposed to be one. After repairs from the initial crash, the ship set sail on weekly cruises in the Caribbean. It did so relatively uneventfully for almost 20 years, just changing owners several times due to bankruptcies. Then in 1985, the ship was bought by San Donato Properties Corporation. Don't know who that is? Well, it's owned by Transcorp Services SA, which is owned by FST, Flagship Trust, which is owned by FSSO, Flagship Service Org, which is owned by Sea Org, which is owned by the Church of Scientology.
So, notice they used 6 shell corporations, or 5 because one of those was inaccurate. The Sea Org is not a legal registered entity. It's interesting that he managed to include it in there, but you've still got like 5 shell companies that Scientology used to purchase the Freewinds. That is exactly what they do when purchasing property here in Clearwater, Florida, so that the government and the press doesn't realize how much property they're snapping up.
To those that don't know, the Church of Scientology is a profit-making religious cult that has previously been convicted of conspiracy and fraud in the United States and abroad. They believe in reincarnation and the ability to clear past misdeeds by going through a process called auditing. The only catch? To audit, you need to have a trained Scientologist with you, and that can cost upwards of several thousands of dollars. In a way, the Freewinds was purchased to be Scientology's money-making machine. After all, it's the only location in the world where Scientology believers can obtain OT8, the highest auditing level. Imagine it as being the Vatican, or the Mecca of Scientology. But the ship also has another unique feature spread throughout the vessel: blue asbestos. Blue asbestos is the deadliest kind of asbestos, and when inhaled can cause severe lung cancer or mesothelioma. When the Scientology architect responsible for inspecting the vessel informed executives of his findings back in 1987, they allegedly shrugged it off, stating that if asbestos were truly dangerous, the cult founder would have warned them about it. Thus, for the next few decades, no one, neither passengers, nor crew members, nor guests, was ever informed that the ship they are on is filled with one of the world's deadliest and most toxic minerals.
Guys, so many Scientologists die from cancer. Now, I'm saying that anecdotally. I do not have statistics. I do not know the percentages. Even if I knew those stats for Scientology, I don't know how those I wouldn't know the comparable numbers to the society at large or, other subsections of the society. All I can tell you is that anecdotally speaking, so many Scientologists die from cancer. And just to know, and you don't have to be OT8 or OT7 to go to the Freewinds. Scientologists at all levels of the bridge can go to the Freewinds for short little courses or conventions and whatever. Thousands and thousands of Scientologists have gone through the Freewinds. Remember, there's only about 30,000 Scientologists in the entire world. And just knowing that blue asbestos, it's not like blue asbestos is just tucked away in the ceiling of this thing. Blue asbestos is part and parcel of the entire makeup of the ship. I mean, it's kind of like back in the day, you had your exterior housing shingles were made with asbestos. That's kind of the way the Freewinds was constructed. Asbestos is like baked into all of the surfaces. It's not just insulation. It's literally part of the materials used in the construction of the ship. Just to know that this blue asbestos, extremely carcinogenic, has been on the Freewinds since day one. While they have been cycling Scientologists through this thing for decades, knowing about it, it's really incredible. Scientologists have no idea.
We'll get back to the asbestos in a bit, but let's briefly forget about the deadly minerals on board. How's everything else? How's the cruise? The answer: disastrous. The cruise ship is staffed solely by members of the Sea Org, Scientology's paramilitary religious order consisting only of the most fervent and dedicated believers in Scientology. When they initially joined the ship's staff, they signed an employment contract for the next billion years. No, actually, I'm serious, for the next 1 billion years. Now, to make someone sign a billion-year contract, you'd expect some incredible employment perks, right? Well, you won't be disappointed. With 120-hour work weeks and a weekly allowance of $50, your hourly wage comes down to a solid 42 cents. Not bad. So it might surprise you that some crew members claim to be overworked and underpaid and start to realize that Scientology isn't as fun and as hip as they thought it would be and decide to leave. But it isn't always that easy. A former Scientologist by the name of Valeska Paris claims she was sent to live on the ship by the leader of Scientology at age 17.
By the way, it is Valeska's lawsuit. It is the hearing. The hearing I'm going to in 2 days is the hearing for Valeska Paris's lawsuit. Also involved in that lawsuit are 2 other Sea Org members that worked on the Freewinds named Gawain and Laura Baxter. I don't think Valeska or Gawain and Laura will be in court on Thursday. I think it'll just be the attorneys, but that is the lawsuit.
To keep her away from her mother that publicly denounced the cult. Once on board, officers supposedly immediately took her passport away and forced the teenager to work below deck in dire conditions. She ended up spending almost 12 years on board. This is not a one-off accusation. Another ex-crew member, Scott Campbell, asked to leave the ship to visit his dying grandmother. After they reportedly refused, he escaped the ship while docked in Mexico, only to be found and dragged back by ship security. He was then allegedly confined to his bedroom for 6 months, only periodically given drugged food and a 5-gallon bucket to do his business in. The Church of Scientology has been accused by dozens of ex-crew members of severely mistreating crew and forcing them to do hard manual labor once they announce their intention to leave. Some of these crew members' stories are truly heartbreaking and make you question the organization as a whole. But it's not only crew members that are treated inhumanely. If you think salespeople on your last cruise were annoying, imagine being asked on the daily to pay thousands of dollars for special auditing services and constantly being questioned why you didn't book your next cruise yet. A passenger that refused to leave money on the onboard account for a future cruise and said he would leave the cult altogether claims he was kidnapped and confined to his room for days before he managed to construct a rope to leap out of his window into freedom. But amongst all those horror stories, some passengers are having fun. We're talking about the ultra-rich and ultra-famous. Amongst the ship's celebrity guests were Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes, John Travolta, and other famous Scientologist actors and actresses. Tom Cruise even celebrated his 42nd birthday on board together with the Scientology leader in quite an opulent way.
Guys, check it out. You can see in the background there, that is Ron Miscavige Sr. playing the trumpet. He's the father of David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology. It was sometime after this cruise that Ron Miscavige Sr. himself escaped from Scientology's international management base. But here he is, playing in the band at Tom Cruise's birthday party aboard the Freewinds.
Meanwhile, crew members are reportedly mistreated, abused, and unjustly imprisoned. Passengers are allegedly coerced to spend their every remaining dime they owned. And did you forget yet? Everyone, and I mean everyone, is unknowingly inhaling blue asbestos. Only in April 2008 did Curaçao health authorities detect the deadly mineral in an onboard inspection. They found a significant amount of raw blue asbestos, the most hazardous form of the mineral, all over the ship. They estimated that it would take months for the ship to be decontaminated, and it would cost tens of millions of dollars to do so, far more than the ship is currently worth. Yet somehow, within 30 days of the inspection, the ship was sailing again, with passengers, and the church vehemently denies there was ever any asbestos on board. At the same time, it can be estimated that the contaminated vessel is potentially responsible for over 1,000 premature deaths amongst passengers and crew. This figure is completely arbitrary, however, and we will likely never know the exact number. That's because the Church of Scientology is not releasing any passenger lists, and signs of asbestos exposure can take between 10 and 20 years to show. That's why health authorities are urging anyone that has been on this ship to be tested as soon as possible. Yet to this very day, the allegedly still hazardous contaminated ship is still sailing the Caribbean with unsuspecting passengers, crew members, and guests. It is also possible that at least some of these CO crew members on board are still being held there against their will. Others could be mistreated and exploited, and passengers are probably still being brainwashed to give their every remaining dime to the cult. To sum it up, here's what we know about the Freewinds. We have a cruise ship that was originally designed to be a car ferry and that is already over twice as old as the recommended maximum ship lifespan. We have a ship filled with asbestos that is potentially responsible for the premature death of many people. We have a ship where crew members report being held up against their will, being overworked, and paid 42 cents an hour. We have a ship where passengers report being brainwashed to spend their every remaining dime on board. And we have a ship that is still sailing today, possibly causing more misery and pain. And no one seems to care.
That's a pretty damn good summary of the Freewinds and the condition of it and the status of it and the role that it plays and what Scientology is able to do to its public, its staff, and its Sea Org members aboard the Freewinds, out of the watchful eye and oversight of authorities and regulators and governments, and that's a pretty accurate summary. And when he says in the video that the cost of removing the blue asbestos would surpass the cost of the ship itself, it's important to keep in mind that the value of that ship is not related to the physical, blue book value of the ship as far as Scientology is concerned. The value of that ship is how much money they are able to extract from members when they are aboard the ship and not able to get away from Scientology's registrars and fundraisers. So that ship is worth way more than tens of millions of dollars to Scientology. I would still question whether it actually cost them tens of millions of dollars to remove and remediate all of the blue asbestos. And I genuinely question whether it has been removed. I looked it up online. There's articles about it. It is not clear whether the regulators actually insisted that the asbestos be removed or if it's just been covered over or painted over. And so it's not clear whether Scientologists are still being exposed to blue asbestos on the Freewinds. For you internet sleuths out there, if you find information about this definitively one way or another, please share it with me and I'll do an update video about it. All right, everyone, that is all I have for now. Hey, before I go, let me make my regular plug for the Aftermath Foundation. The Aftermath Foundation helps people who are escaping from Scientology, escaping from the Sea Organization, escaping from the Freewinds ship, and restarting their lives from scratch. We had these cute little Mike Rinder bobbleheads made. Mike Rinder's on the board of the Aftermath Foundation. You can get these at the spshop.com. 100% of the proceeds from the SP shop go to support the Aftermath Foundation. So we're just having a little bit of fun with that. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye!